Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with Keith Myers, co-host Keith Myers, here to talk Seahawks football. Got a somewhat unique show for you today. We do these once a year, a pretty decent look at the coaching staff. This year is pretty important because we jettisoned the entire offensive coaching staff, save one position coach. And we're going to have a lot to talk about with regards to the scheme and those coaches, and the defense pretty much stays the same. And we'll take a good look at that too. Welcome in, Keith. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, a lot to kind of get into. This is it's an interesting a show that we do, and a lot of research into figuring out who these guys are and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think if you're wanting information on who these new offensive coaches are, you've come to the right place, everybody.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing, actually. Like in going through and doing the research for this show, and of course we kind of know the top guys, but there are a lot of people under that. I'm just really impressed with the composition of this, and composition seems to be the word of the week. I'm super impressed with the composition of the coaching staff and the diversity and the experience level. When you hire a brand new coach, the youngest coach in the NFL last year, and you kind of assemble a staff, one of the reasons he brought in Leslie Frazier to begin with was that he felt like the experience level overall on the coaching staff was lacking, and he wanted to add Leslie Frazier's then 24 years of experience, this year 25, into that room. And I think it paid off really on the defensive side of the ball, Keith. On the offensive side, we saw just the opposite situation. Really, rookie offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, and a little bit more experience down the line from there. But those top two guys kind of controlled the whole thing, and it was in the opposite direction, shown to be without any effect at all as far as having that experience and translating into a competency on the offensive side. It was, we were not good. We weren't a good coaching staff. We weren't a good offensive team. And even with an experienced quarterback like Jaxon-smith, could not overcome that incompetence. And it was just kind of a cluster. This year, they got rid of that immediately, 1st of February. And Mike Macdonald began a fairly methodical search, and we're going to talk about Mike Macdonald, to bring on competence and experience, and that's exactly what he did. So before we get started down the offensive side of the ball, let's talk about the head coach, Mike Macdonald. Thought he had a fabulous year last year. I thought he met or exceeded expectations on literally every level, getting the team to play together, establishing a culture, being a good leader, a very well-spoken, thoughtful, and almost experienced beyond his years in dealing with the media, with protecting his players, with kind of putting all of his players in a position to be successful and understanding where his strengths and weaknesses were. All of those kind of subtle things, nuanced ways of coaching, he was excellent at, and it translated. By the end of the year, that defense was playing very well. And I thought, in addition to just kind of the defense, which you would expect almost, I thought he was a good head coach. The offense didn't really work out, and he seemed to be somewhat ineffective in communicating with Huff and Grubb on exactly what he wanted out of them and have that translate. But it was so bad, and they were so inexperienced. I just don't think it was that message got through to them, and it just didn't work, and that's why they're gone. And I thought that was probably that decision at the at the end of last year to get rid of that staff was his best decision so far as a head coach.
Yeah. You're right. I think that, we got to look at the defense and we got to look at everything that happened there and its transformation. And, the old scheme, the Pete Carroll scheme had run its course. The NFL had kind of figured it out. And so they needed something new. And they did that. But I think that more importantly is, you're replacing kind of a legend with Pete Carroll in terms of running a locker room and running a culture and all those things, which are really important for a head coach and really kind of if you want success, you have to do those things first. And Mike Macdonald had to come in and not try and continue it exactly because then it wouldn't be genuine, but establish his own while still not tearing down what was there because what was there was good. And that's a difficult balance to make it your own without making it completely different.
A perfect illustration of that was when he took down all the pictures in the hallway at the VMAC about the old regime, all the old players, the successes, the championships, the Super Bowl stuff. He kind of removed that, added his own stuff, and that's at the time there was a little pushback. I remember pushback. Yeah, oh my God, he's messing with the history, the culture, and there was a lot of talk about exactly what you're describing.
Yeah, but when you look back now, after having seen the result of it, not the actions, in the moment, but the result of it is he was able to, okay, it doesn't matter how good Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas were and Cam Chancellor. They're not here. Like, we have to be good. We have to be that good. And so, yeah, it wasn't a complete overhaul of the culture, but it was a refocusing of it in a way that it's a delicate touch, and that's a hard thing to do. And especially for a young, new head coach to know how to manage that. I was really impressed with the way that kind of unfolded throughout the year, because honestly, that's the hardest thing as a coach. And I think it's one of the things that teams miss, why so many of these coordinators that are hired into head coaching jobs and then fail, they know football, they know X's and O's, they even know, NFL players, but can they run a culture within a team? And most of them fail at that, and that's why they fail. And so Macdonald, I thought, succeeded at that incredibly well.
When you go read the bio of a coach like Mike Macdonald, you don't read about any of that.
No, you don't.
Like, it's just the X's and O's and where he went and who he coached and how they performed and all that stuff. It's like, show me that extra stuff, like you're talking about. And really, nobody really talks about that, how important that is. We saw that with Pete Carroll, especially early, how that was fundamentally important to establishing a championship mindset and getting this franchise over the hump to win a Super Bowl. Yeah. That's why I'm so confident. It's like, yeah, last year it was fun. It was interesting. I appreciated the way they transitioned from Pete to Mike. And then how it played out. It was like, okay, this has actually really got a chance to work because of everything you just said. It's not about just the defensive coordinator stuff. He had to be a head coach and all of that, what that entails. And he did a fabulous job, I thought. And so for me, it points to a very much now wide open window to franchise success, and how far we can go. Nobody knows. But I think they've got the mix right. And the players are starting to formulate into a team that's going to start to compete. And so this year will be very interesting to me.
Yeah, I think We will see with the offensive coaching staff. I mean, they're really experienced, and we know their track record of success throughout their history, their careers. So we can kind of just assume that it's going to work, but we'll see how it comes together with Seattle's players. But it does feel very much now that they've got the coaching staff together that can win and win big. Now they have to get the roster in that same place, and it's not as bad as people think it is. The roster isn't. So success will come. It's one of those things. It's a process. You've got to build. They built the coaching staff, and then now they're building the roster, and you have to build. You just have to keep building. But yeah, I'm confident in Macdonald. That turned out to be an exceptional hire.
So we talked about all the nuances and the intangible stuff and all of that. Let's talk about the X's and O's. Let's talk about the expectations that his squad has on the defensive side of the ball, since he does serve as the defensive play caller on this team. Let's talk about that capacity for a minute. What do you think of his job last year, and what are your expectations this year?
Well, honestly, I never felt that the team was just completely out of whack. He managed what plays he was calling to the situation extremely well. And that was definitely not true the year before, right? And it was to the point where there were moments when you forget about X's and O's and scheme, and you just watch players because you actually trust that the play calls, that what you're doing is the right call. And it's been a while since I felt that way about defense. I loved what he did as far as moving guys around and confusing quarterbacks and disguising coverages and bringing guys from different angles and getting after the quarterback with not just lining up and saying, here, go, but like, let's scheme some pressure. Let's create these things with the way that we do things. And let's be intentionally confusing. Let's rattle some quarterbacks by completely changing what their reads are. It's not a common thing, because usually, NFL teams are smart. They see that kind of stuff and they adapt to it. But he kept it. He kept it new. He kept it fresh, and it worked. It worked throughout the entire season.
I was also really impressed, just to add on to that, how he especially played teams in our own division, like San Francisco and the Rams and then Arizona, especially the Rams and the 49ers. I thought that he had those guys figured out by the second game on those matchups. Like the first game, they were pretty good, but our defense was not as fine-tuned as we were later in the season. Those second games, though, he shut those guys down on the defensive side of the ball, and it was pretty cool to see. It gave me a lot of hope about taking this division, and that's something else. Okay, so let's stay on the defensive side of the ball, since we've been talking about it for just a few minutes, and talk about Aiden Dirty just for a second. Now, a lot of people don't understand or aren't fully aware of what his role is on the team, and probably me included a little bit. And also, you just highlighted one of the team's best attributes, which is scheming and play calling on game day to have an advantage against offenses. And Mike Macdonald is responsible for that. Now, during the week, he's obviously got a lot of contribution, but on game day, he's the guy. There were talk, when he first got hired about, I'm going to be the play caller someday, eventually, if the right person is in place, we may take a look at changing that. But for now, that's the way it is. There's no hint at all this year about that changing. Looks like he's going to be the play caller again in 2025. Currently, the defensive coordinator in Dirty would be the logical guy that would get those responsibilities if that should change. So talk to me about what you know about him, the kind of job that he has done or has the reputation of being good at, and where he fits in the future. Like, is a guy like that susceptible to leaving because he doesn't get to call plays?
Yes, he is. To answer that last question. But that's just for his own career, right? Because he won't get a head coaching job without being a play caller. And essentially, when you kind of look at it, as a non-play caller, he's kind of like the assistant defensive coordinator, with Macdonald being, the primary defensive coordinator. But there's a lot more to the job than calling plays. A lot of it is examining film and determining how you want to attack an opposing offense and coming up with that game plan. And then how that you communicate that and all the little details to the position coaches, and how you prepare, the team for what's going to happen in film sessions, and in larger team meetings with like the whole defense. And it's running those meetings and those kind of things. And those are the things that Dirty has done and has had to do in his role as defensive coordinator to allow Mike Macdonald more time to do his other responsibilities that are not just the defense. And it's been a really nice mix and a nice, he's done that job well. He was not a play caller in Dallas, but came to Seattle. He had not wasn't a defensive coordinator in Dallas before he came to Seattle either. So this was a promotion. This gives him an opportunity to gain experience and to learn from Macdonald and all of those things. But I do think that at some point, especially if this defense is really good this year and, top 3 defense, we may see him go somewhere where he has an opportunity to call plays. And he'll do that because if he can go and call plays and have the success he has here, in terms of, building a quality defense, then he'll become a head coach. And that's a big deal for his career. So I think he'll do that. The alternative would be that Mike Macdonald would at one point relinquish playing calling duties to Dirty. And I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon. Mike Macdonald doesn't seem like he's in a spot already where he's ready to just stop doing that.
And it was so successful. Why would you? And if he's got the time to do it all, there may be a point in time where he wants to step back slightly, and take one thing off of his plate, which is a big thing. Again, it would have to be the right guy.
It'd have to be the right person.
Maybe it would be a situation like Aiden Dirty leaves and they have to rehire for that position, and whoever they hired has a ton of experience already, and they hire a traditional play calling defensive coordinator into the existing scheme. That would be a situation where I think maybe that could happen.
Yeah, yes and no. The reason why I don't think it would happen in that way is because this is Mike Macdonald's defense. He's only going to turn that over to someone who will run his defense.
Yes.
He's not going to turn it over to a defensive coordinator who does different things, because then it's not his defense. I see him staying as the play caller. It's one of those things. You look at like Sean McVay still calls plays for the offense for the Rams, and it's been years. And he's said some of the same things, that under the right situation, he'd be willing to give it up, but he never has. And why would you? He's a fantastic, coordinator, play caller, coach, and also still young, right? So Macdonald's very much kind of in the same mold as far as like being young, doing it himself. And he's going to promote from within. If it ever is a guy that he turns the play calling over to, it will be someone that he's groomed into being ready. So he trusts them with his defense. And at least that's my opinion of it. I think we're a ways off from
trust him with the defense, but trust him with the franchise.
Yeah.
Essentially, because if the defense fails under him, even if it's not him calling the plays, that's on him. Mm-hmm. It's a direct reflection of him, So that would be hard to do. I can see that. Let's talk about one more guy before we get to the offensive side. I wanted to talk about assistant head coach Leslie Frazier, because he has a unique role in this on this team, and has a ton of experience. Like I said, we mentioned it earlier. He's got 25 years of NFL coaching experience in addition to other experience as well, and just a vast data bank of information on players, coaches, schemes in the league, plus leadership. And really, I thought played an instrumental role in getting this new coaching staff last year kicked off in the right way. What are your feelings around Leslie Frazier? He's back for his second year. He could have left, I think, had he had or sensed other opportunities out there, but he chose to stay another year with this team, with this coach. And what are your thoughts around that?
Well, I mean, he didn't coach in 2023. He took a year off, and had a bunch of teams wanting him to come back. But he came back, and he came to Seattle entirely because of Mike Macdonald. They'd worked together in the past, and he knew who Mike Macdonald was as a coach, and wanted to work with him. And I thought that is really telling, and why he's back. I think there will be a point when he ventures off on his own again, unless he just stays here until he retires, which I don't know. I would be surprised. This is a guy who used to be a head coach, had his, he's got his ambitions and all of that, and he's not done.
And he's going to walk away from this opportunity with a intimate knowledge of Mike Macdonald's defense, if he wants to go do that again.
Yeah, and he was a defensive coordinator with Buffalo, and all of that. So he's definitely, he would definitely be an interesting candidate for other jobs. But here, he's got a. You're right. You said he has a unique role. He does. He doesn't have any direct responsibilities where it's like, week in and week out, here is exactly what he does. His job is to assist everything, to be a sounding board for Mike Macdonald or Andre Durde when they're coming up with ideas, to oversee position coaches on the defensive side and make sure that the communication from the top end is being made all the way to the players as it should be, and to just lend a really experienced set of eyes to the entire process. And honestly, this is the kind of coach that a lot of young rookie coaches, especially young coaches, are afraid to hire, because they're worried that, guys are going to see Leslie Frazier and his 25 years of experience and his just catalog of things that he's done, and success, and they're going to listen to him. And the young coach is going to worry that he's going to lose part of the locker room, because they're not going to listen to the head coach. They're going to wait until, the Leslie Frazier in the room talks, and they'll listen to that. And so a lot of young coaches don't hire that person. But Mike Macdonald in part because of his previous relationship with Leslie Frazier, and in part because of his own confidence, was not afraid of it. And it was like one of the first things he did was to go out and hire a guy like Leslie Frazier with all of that experience who could help him learn on the job the differences between being a coordinator and being a head coach. And honestly, like that, his willingness to kind of do that and to take, it's not really a risk if you looking back, especially if you, if you think about their relationship and who Leslie Frazier is, but to take what is that perceived risk, and to admit that, their experience is necessary for your success and that you aren't not having the ego to just be like, I can do this. I don't need them. That's a big deal. And it speaks a lot about Mike Macdonald. And it also speaks a lot about, kind of the quality of character of Leslie Frazier and his willingness to do those things as a backseat and not put himself forward as the guy or the coordinator, or not to try and take on, those responsibilities, but to step back and just help everybody do their job better. Yeah, it's a hard thing to do. It really is.
Yeah. So I wrote just a small one sentence note on Leslie Frazier on this show. And I said, Frazier is the world's greatest advisor. I guess 2 sentences. He has a large role internally, but externally doesn't want any of the credit for what he provides.
Yes.
Which is amazing. It's amazing. It really is. It's a unique situation with a vastly underrated mentor, essentially. And Mike Macdonald's the beneficiary. And both individuals have to have small egos in order for this to work. And they both do. You would never know that with either one if you talk to them individually. Mike Macdonald's a confident guy. He exudes that. He's very, he's on it. Like his mind is organized very well. So when you hear him speak, he's very, very organized. And Leslie Frazier's the same way. And they just work together really well. Like it'll be a tough day when Leslie Frazier leaves, but I think all that wisdom is, transferring like a hard drive onto a regular desktop computer. It's like the transfer is in process, and Mike, I think Leslie Frazier doesn't leave until it's the right time to leave, and so I'm not worried about it anymore. Like
one of the things that was interesting, if you watch last year, is just how rarely Leslie Frazier spoke to the media. I don't think he ever, other than, when he was hired and one time during training camp, got up and answered questions at the podium. He didn't want it. Some people would, the beat reporters that are down there on the sidelines would go talk to him. And you could, during like training camp, you could watch them talk. And so, that they're doing stuff, but yet no quotes come in, into their articles about it. He really tried not to take credit for anything that was going on.
Yep.
And I mean, just to put your ego aside, because you know that he was a big part of that success. And that he knew he was a big part of that success, but he refused to demand credit for it. And that's cool. That's just, that's a special individual, I think.
Okay. Let's talk about the group that I think everyone really wants to talk about. It's the offensive coordinator and his staff and the scheme and how it's all going to work on the offensive side of the ball, with Klint Kubiak as the offensive coordinator after a methodical search, after the old coaching staff was jettisoned. Mike Macdonald made his selection, Klint Kubiak. We've talked in prior shows about our process in evaluating coordinators as well, and landed on him very early in the process as being kind of an ideal fit for what Mike Macdonald stated he wanted to do in the press. If he wanted to actually accomplish those things, this would be the right fit. And sure enough, that was the selection, and was probably the pick all along, but he wanted to go through the process, which I thought was perfect for Mike. Like, he probably let Klint Kubiak know that he was the guy, but he wanted to follow his process and have that opportunity. And both coaches, Klint and Mike, showed a lot of patience in that process, and so did John Schneider. And it worked out. Talk to me about that process. And then talk to me about why we thought Klint Kubiak would be the ideal fit.
Well, okay. So, you got to look at what Mike Macdonald wants the offense to look like. And it's not what was there last year, which was, throwing on every down, no efficiency. It's big player bust, and all of that. He wants to be a physical team that runs the ball, that converts third downs with regularity, that is efficient at turning drives into points. And I mean, it's the opposite of what the team was a year ago. And so, going out and looking for coordinator, there were coordinators that, offered different things, and there were some other good candidates, but Kubiak's the guy that you look at his track record and the number of times he's been an offensive coordinator a few times, and he's been, at other levels of offensive coaching, kind of in the middle there. His teams have always ran the ball well, and they always play a physical style, and it was also about bringing in this outside zone, the zone stretch, which is a unique. It's a different thing than what the Seahawks have run. If you go back all the way back to 2010, when Pete Carroll was hired, they ran outside zone for that first year, and then Alex Gibbs had retired, and so they hired Tom Cable, and they were an inside zone ever since, and which is fine. I mean, it's a different style of running, but now they're going back to this outside zone, and they've kind of been finding players for the offensive line that could do the outside zone scheme for the last few years. And it's okay. Now you got to find it, and if you're going to make that commitment with the players, you need to make that commitment with the scheme. And so, he was a guy with proven success, experience, and brought the right scheme in. Which is interesting that, I'm talking about the running game stuff all here. He was the 49ers passing game coordinator a couple of years ago. So it's pretty clear that he knows offense just on all phases, which you want out of a coordinator. It's not just some of the other options that they were looking at were like, ooh, this, a running game coordinator and an offensive line coach, and guys that you knew could run. They were going to develop running games. But with Kubiak, you get both, right? You get a guy who knows how to make teams run the ball, but also the expertise of a passing game coordinator. So he just made for kind of the obvious choice. He was available, and when a guy like that's available, who's young and talented and fits what you want, you should just go grab him. And the Seahawks did. Now, not right away. I like that they didn't just make the assumption and go say, "Oh, he's going to be our guy." They went and they talked to other people. They wanted someone else to surprise them and blow them away and be like, we're gonna try something. But instead, they went with the smart pick, the one that made the most sense.
Now, do you think that was a pick that was a combo decision between Schneider and Macdonald, or was that a Macdonald hire?
I think it's a combo decision. I think that Schneider does get a say in coaching staffs, and I think part of the reason why it took so long within the process was because of John Schneider's involvement. And I'm okay with that. Like, normally I wouldn't be. Normally I like let the head coach pick his staff, but and honestly, McDonald should not have to get any approval to do anything on the defensive side of the ball. But, they hired Grubb a year ago, in part because there wasn't a lot of options left. They were so late in the process that all the good candidates had gone. But they knew they had to get this hire right. You couldn't miss again on your offensive coordinator and again have your offense be awful. So they took their time. And I think Schneider was involved. I haven't seen anything to indicate that he wasn't, and it just makes too much sense to say that he was. So, but it is speculation. We'll find out. At some point, someone will ask him that question, and we'll find out.
I hope it's exactly how you described it, and only if for allowing John Schneider to be intimately involved in how the coaches think, what kind of players that they want, how they want to fill those things, how they want everything to work, so that when John's out looking for players, he knows exactly the kind of guy mentally and physically that these guys are looking for. I will add about Klint Kubiak. People sometimes talk about nepotism, and rightly so. But in this case, I think, there's really no nepotism at this point in his career that has any effect whatsoever. Just getting started in the league. Yeah, he hung around coaches. He got an opportunity. You're not going to bust a guy for that, especially since Kubiak really carved his own path in the NFL by hard work, using the tried, trusted schemes that he kind of inherited, but also adapting as time goes on and learning from other coaches. And my question to you is, can he take a perceived less talented team from 2024, or is it offense, and do enough to be at least league average in 2025? And I will add a little bit of tidbit to that last part. Is that too little to ask of this scheme and the current players on the roster on the offensive side?
I don't think it's too little to ask, because you've got a quarterback that, has 7 years in the league. 6 of them were bad. One of them was very good. And so you're kind of hoping that the very good translates. You've got an offensive line, which as of last year was just awful. And you've lost talent, a unique, important talent at wide receiver in DK Metcalf. So I think you're looking at that's why there's the perceived drop in talent. And there's not if the players don't like that, they got to prove them wrong, right? But there is some of that. And so, but you're hopefully going from, well, not hopefully, you're going from what was just an incompetent scheme to one with an established track record. And that is a plus that people, especially national media people, I think are missing, is just how it's not just the guys on the field. It's the guys in the booth that contribute to the success. And the guys in the booth were so bad for the Seahawks last year that the guys in the field didn't get to do their things. And now you're going to see, that not be holding everything back. So, that I don't think it's asking too little, because I do think they have to overcome some things. But I don't think it's asking too much, even though they've lost talent, because it's just such a vast improvement in terms of overall coaching quality.
So let's talk about that additional coaching quality a little bit. Let's kind of go through the offensive assistants. I'll just kind of rattle them down. We kind of talk about them as a group. Quarterbacks coach Andrew Janoko, John Benton, the offensive line coach, essentially the godfather of zone blocking at this point in his career in the league, run game coordinator Rick Dennison, and the run game specialist and assistant offensive line coach Justin Outen. Those guys are the guys that we talk about when we speak about experience. I think the combined experience of those guys is over 50 years of
It's way more
coaching
than 50
experience.
years.
50 or 60, 70, whatever it is. It's
John
a lot.
Benton has 33 years experience as a coach, and you're calling him the godfather of zone blocking. I think is accurate because, the guys who were instrumental in its development initially, none of them are in the league anymore.
Right.
Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak, Klint's father, and Alex Gibbs. Those are the three guys. Like zone blocking exists because of the three of them. John Benton was the next wave after that. He kind of learned from those three guys, and has taken his knowledge elsewhere. But he's the only guy left of that initial kind of group. The first top three are all retired, and Benton, who is like the guy that was underneath them, that was learning from them, is the most experienced person left from that team, from that Denver team. And 33 years of coaching experience is that's a career, right? That's a lot. And he brings
this lineup of coaches is my dream, like for the offense. Now, I mentioned last week that I was kind of okay on the scheme as far as how it's going to go and play out during the year. Less explosive plays, more conversions, and more touchdowns, hopefully, and winning games versus not. And so there's a balance there for me. But the thing that makes it really good is guys like John Benton and Rick Dennison, like entrusting the offensive scheme, especially the blocking scheme and running game, to those guys is the best case scenario for the Seahawks in the offseason.
Yeah. It really is. Benton, you go down and you look at his teams, and the times that he's done last year, they lost their just pretty much everybody on offense. There had so many injuries, including their quarterback, and they had to run with Spencer Rattler of all people at quarterback, and so the offense was going to struggle with just you don't have a quarterback, you got injuries all over your line, all that kind of stuff. And Alvin Kamara was still an All-Pro. So the running game worked because the offensive line worked, even though they had so many different combinations up front. They made it work. And you go back to 2001 and 2002, where he was with the Jets, right? And it's the Jets. That's an awful franchise. But Breece Hall, ran for 5.8 yards per carry behind an offensive line that had a lot of injuries and kept having to rotate people in and out. Dwayne Brown, we all know Dwayne Brown. He was here in Seattle. He was great here in Seattle, but he was never as good as he was with the Jets when he did not give up a sack and only gave up 3 pressures in 12 games. And that was coming off an injury. So an old player, a guy who was 34, got better by leaving Seattle and joining John Benton on a bad team. Like, that's the kind of thing that you look at and you're like, okay, like, coaching does matter. It really does.
Yeah, I agree. I think Rick Dennison is the next guy to talk about. He's been a part of 13 playoff appearances and 5 division titles, 3 Super Bowl victories, 28 years of experience. Just another piece in there as far as the competence level and the dedication to running the ball and having a balanced offense, and how everything is coordinated is really invaluable. I think it almost ensures success. I'm not going to say 100% certainty that we're going to be successful and we're going to be a top 10 offensive running the ball team. But we sure have a heck of a lot better chance this year than we did last year. And then quarterbacks coach Andrew Janocko, coached with Minnesota in 2021, New Orleans in 2024 when he was Kirk Cousins' coach. Kirk threw for 4,200 yards, 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 103 quarterback rating, plus a Pro Bowl in that season. He also developed Justin Fields in Chicago. And you can say what you want about Justin Fields, but Fields completed 419 passes and 688 pass attempts, 61%, 4,800 yards, 33 touchdowns, carried the ball 284 times for 1,800 yards, 6.3 average, 12 touchdowns in 28 starts. The reason I mention that is because of that developmental time with Justin Fields kind of would translate to our new quarterback with a similar skill set, and I would argue potentially even better as time goes on. But it's nice to know what to do with a weapon because you've already done it with a weapon like that before.
Yeah. That is a good point. I just look at, you look at a guy like that and his job, and he's got 3 very different quarterbacks to work with, right? Drew Lock is, got that like rocket arm, but not a lot of, not the kind of the processing. You've got, your starter who doesn't have that rocket arm, but is really mobile in terms of moving laterally and throwing on the run and accurate. And then you've got your rookie who is, well, he's a rookie and he's not a rookie who's ready to come be a starting quarterback, but he's probably the fastest quarterback in the NFL at this point, and has just incredible running skills with the ball that is really, really rare. You needed a guy that has worked with all sorts of different types of quarterbacks, that has had success with all different types of quarterbacks, because that's what you've got here. And you look at the difference between Kirk Cousins, who's a statue, and Justin Fields, who is absolutely dynamic on the ground, but just never completely developed as a passer. And yeah, you're going to find that's kind of what Seattle's got in their quarterback room right now. And this guy's had success with both. And I think that's an important thing to look at, because that's not an easy thing to work, to do, to have a quarterback or a coach that really knows what to do with both kinds of guy.
I think the other guy that's in that same room is Jake Peetz, 14 years of experience. Some of that, quite a bit of that with the Rams, so he's familiar with this style of offense. And they retained him from the old staff to be on this staff. So that's a good.
He's the only returning offensive coach. Isn't he? I think he's the only returning offensive coach from the previous staff. And he was, interestingly, Mike Macdonald's, he was the guy that Mike Macdonald went to when he had questions, when he needed answers, when all of that. He didn't go to Grubb, which is so telling about that relationship. That he would go and talk to Peetz, and they would, he would be able to talk to him through everything that they're planning and why they're doing it and all of those things. Mike Macdonald really trusted Peetz and his overall knowledge of what was going on and of just NFL offenses in general. And so, like, when he had questions about when he was game planning for an opposing team's, offense, and he had questions about offense, he went to Peetz and was like, okay, here, this is what I'm seeing, tell me why they're doing this. What are they looking for? What's their goal here? And he would rely on Peetz for that information. So I was not surprised one bit to see him retained, just because he's definitely got the trust of Mike Macdonald.
I think they did retain one other guy, the Kennedy Palomano, the running backs coach, as well. And one of the reasons they did is he had experience with Klint Kubiak in Minnesota during Dalvin Cook's run while he was there. So, and then wide receiver coach Frisman Jackson's got 6 years of experience, also some experience in Pittsburgh, developing George Pickens. He has a pass game coordinator experience with Carolina for a couple seasons. So back at wide receiver coach, so that room, that whole offensive staff is really impressive to me. And it gives a chance for what I would call in league circles, a mediocre talent room. But it's a solid room. It's just not top 10. I think if you would measure it against anybody's roster, nobody's going to rank Seattle's offense in the top 10 or possibly even the top 20 at this stage. We'll see what happens after the season. But so you're taking a room of talented players, but also, some of those guys are just league average. And it really is going to, I think what will happen on the defensive side has a chance to happen on the offensive side is what I'm trying to say. Mike Macdonald took a group of players that he essentially inherited, save the draft class, and turned them into a really nice, competent defense. No real huge standout names, save Leonard Williams and Witherspoon. Everyone else was just kind of doing their jobs and doing it really well at a high competency level. And I can see that happening on the offensive side of the ball, especially with the offensive line as the year progresses. Like, those guys are going to be competent. There's no question in my mind. Those guys are going to be competent by the end of the season. Now, what that translates to, we'll find out. With our quarterback situation, I think there's going to be a level of competency there and execution and efficiency that is just going to happen because of the nature of the scheme and who they're coached by. The running game has an opportunity to be very successful because of those two things. And the wide receiver thing will work itself out. So I think the offense can be competent, can be league average. I think that's not too much to ask. You said that yourself. Is it not enough to ask? And I asked that, and because I think as the year progresses, I think this team could be top 15 or top 15 to 10 as far as running game, as far as the blocking. I think that the alignment of the scheme with the personnel is way more on target, and you're going to get a lot more competence in the coaching staff to convey that to the players. So I see them having an opportunity there. And then the running game, with the individual running backs, I think really have a chance for success here. My only concern is, how is that passing game going to translate with the pass blocking? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the run blocking and pass blocking aren't as, they are related in terms of within the scheme, because if you're really good at run blocking, it will slow down the pass rush because they won't attack, because they know if they attack on a running play, that you're playing into, or sorry, if you attack on a running play, then you're playing into what the offense the offense wants to do, and so they may hold back a little bit and read before they attack, and so there you can help one out with the other, and but yeah, I mean, like the running game will be a lot of scheme. The scheme will be more important to the success than necessarily the talent, because of just kind of this is the reason why outside zone or zone stretch, the reason why it works, is because of what you're asking guys to do, and really what you're asking defensive players to do against you, and how hard it is. So the I'm trying to figure out how to word this. The pass blocking, if this team ends up behind, like way behind in a game, and they just have to drop back and throw on every down to try and get themselves back into it, they might be in trouble because center, right guard, those are going to be liabilities. And those are hard positions to, account for and make work, because it's hard to get a running back to help. You can help a tackle pretty easily, having them chip on their way out or that kind of stuff. But to have them help in the middle where guys are just getting beat one-on-one is a lot harder to do. And so, yeah, if they're behind and they're just dropping back and throwing on every down, like I think they're
like we did last year.
Struggle. Yes, like we did last year. Despite
Right.
the lack of offensive line talent. But if they're in games, up, even down by a touchdown or less, where they can continue to run the football, they can
Play action.
Play action, roll their quarterback out, do those kind of things to make it easier on the offensive line for the pass blocking. And also just the fact that they can freaking run the ball. Like it makes their job easier. It really does. You'll be able to hide the deficiencies of the couple players.
It'll be fascinating to see it all play out. There's quite a few other coaches on the roster. I would encourage listeners that are still interested in learning about, quite a few of the other position coaches to go on Seahawks.com and just look at the biographies of these guys. It's a fascinating group. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the complementary football works this year. Mike Macdonald speaks of that. He means it. I think Klint Kubiak speaks of it and means it. And having that come together, using the clock, converting third downs makes the defense even better. And if you're on the field, 4 or 5 minutes less than you were last year as a defense, you're going to have more juice to get, off on your, rushing the quarterback and just overall play. And you're going to allow less points. And with the incremental improvements that we're going to see on the defense anyway, I think this defense could end up being a top scoring defense. It has the opportunity to be a top scoring defense if the offense does its job.
Yeah. If the offense can convert third downs, stay on the field, move the ball, score some points of their own, and not be what they were last year. Because last year it was so bad. They just put all the pressure onto the defense. And for the last 9 games, the defense, it didn't matter. They responded. They did really well, despite the fact that the offense was so bad.
Right.
Are we going to talk about special teams at all?
Oh, we can. Yeah. I mean, the special teams coordinator is Jay Harbaugh, and I think he does a good job. Anything else?
Yeah, there were a couple points. There were a couple
cool
points
thing
last year where I concerned, because he's Jay Harbaugh. He's a Harbaugh kid, which means this is a nepotism hire and all of that. But
your sign is going crazy in the background, by the way.
I don't know why it does that. Anyways, so I was concerned, and there was a couple of games where the special teams looked pretty poor, and I was really concerned. But there were also days, in games when it looked really good, and I thought that it was one of those things that, like everything else, that kind of improved over time last year, and also they had to develop guys because they had a lot of really, really young, inexperienced guys out there that didn't really, they didn't have a lot of experience on the field for special teams. So it took time, and they got there. And so, yeah, the one special teams thing that I just missed it when he was hired. and that would be Nico Thorpe, who's one of their assistants on special teams. I don't know if listeners will remember, but he was with Seattle from 2018 to 2020 as a cornerback in theory, but mostly he was there to play special teams, and he was the special teams captain. And just a guy that knows, those jobs and what to do there and what it takes to be successful. And was always just a leader of all those guys. Because a lot of the guys in special teams, these are guys that's the only snaps they play. They don't get to get on the field with the offense. They're the wide receivers and running backs that stand on the sidelines. They're the linebackers and defensive backs that don't get on the field. And so you got to keep them engaged. You got to, keep them, make sure that they're ready and all of that. And there is some work that has to be done there in order to make sure those units are ready when they're needed. And Thorpe was a guy that really got that kind of stuff as a player, and now he's turned that into coaching. And that seems like this is like an obvious thing. It's like there are certain players that when you see them, you're like, they're going to be a good coach. And honestly, Nico Thorpe's that guy. He's going to be a good coach.
An old Portland State guy, by the way. So on Harbaugh, in addition to some of the things you mentioned earlier, I think he's got one really big job this year. Well, there's two things I want to talk about. Number one, he's a unique coordinator on the team in that he gets a lot of turnover for the players that he has available in special teams. Yes. So he has to reteach every year. So that's a unique skill. And then second, there's going to be a camp battle this year. We're going to have a training camp preview show for our next show out. But the unique battle is going to be in the return game. It'd be nice if we could get a little bit better at kick returns and punt returns than we have been. And there's some unique players available that are going to get an opportunity to kind of return things. And I really am interested to see how that works out. Like Ricky White, Torrey Horton could be a part of a return tandem. Damien Martinez has some return experience. I think there's a couple of the cornerbacks that have and safeties that have experience returning the ball. And so everyone's going to kind of be put into a bucket, and we'll see who emerges. But that'll be something fascinating to watch as well. Yeah. That's it. Unless you wanted to talk about any one other person.
No, I think that's kind of the extent of it. There's, like you said earlier, there's a lot of coaches, a lot of position coaches, a lot of guys that we don't talk about because it's hard to convey exactly like what they do and how it translates to the field where fans can see it. But if you're one of those people like me who's heading up to training camp, go up there. Don't just watch the team drills and that. Go watch the guys teaching one-on-one. After a rep is over, and they're pulled aside by a coach, and they go through things and just watch. It's fun. It really is. It's watching coaches teach and players learn is an experience, and I really enjoy it, and I encourage other people to go look.
Great advice. Okay, let's get out of here. Find Keith on Blue Sky at Myers NFL. You can find me on WC Hawk. You know where the show's at on your favorite podcast platforms and our YouTube channel. And when you get there, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a show. And we'll see you next time for the training camp preview. And training camp starts officially this next week, although all the rookies are in. By the way, all of our rookies have contracts signed now. Last time we recorded, Emanwari and Arroyo had not signed theirs. Emanwari got a fully guaranteed deal at pick 35 in the second round, which is unprecedented. And then Arroyo signed a deal where he's got about 85% of his contract guaranteed. So guarantees are going up now into the second round, which I don't know how you all feel about that, but it is what it is, right? It's the NFL, and guys want their money, and it's happening. So I don't know how to stop that. I don't think it ever does stop. So anyway, let's get out of here, and we'll see you soon, guys. Thanks. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks fans, wherever you may be, thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football.